tour guide and driver for the next 25 to 30 minutes. We first have to start off with some safety information. Those doors on either side of the tram are latched, not locked, so please do not lean on them. For those of you in the second and third cars, if you look above your head, you'll notice yellow emergency strips. These are for medical emergencies only. And for those of you in the car directly behind me, if you have a medical emergency, you can tap on my window. If you drop an item, let us know when we get back to the station so we can try to send someone out to retrieve it for you. And finally, I will make frequent stops where you're welcome to stand up and get a better view. It's just very important that everyone please remain seated while the vehicle is in motion. Today we're going to be talking about the adaptations animals have to survive in their homes. We may notice similar coat colors, the presence of horns, or even behavioral adaptations, all allowing them to survive and thrive. It is windy today and it gets extra gusty in these valleys, so I recommend hanging on to your hats or perhaps taking them off completely. Again, if you drop it, we gotta wait till we get back to the station. The area out on your driver's side is where we will be ending our tour. This is East Africa. So we'll have an opportunity to come back through and stop to talk about some of the animals out here in just a bit. Our first stop is for the birds out on your passenger side. These are the greater flamingos, and you may notice that they are a lighter shade of pink compared to what you're probably used to. That's because they live in the salt marshes of Africa, where it's extremely hot. So it's advantageous for these birds to be a lighter coloration to reflect sunlight and heat off themselves. They are filter feeders, so you'll find them with their heads down at the bottom of the pond. They're going to be sucking up all the good nutrients and filtering out what they don't want through two holes on their bills. If you didn't know, flamingos get that pink coloration from the carotenoids that are in the food they eat. I like to start off this portion of the tour with a little history on the safari park. The founder, Dr. Schroeder, wanted to create a breeding facility for the San Diego Zoo. We are still considered a breeding facility today, and we have many conservation projects around the world. We currently have 8 conservation hubs, or areas where there are plants and animals of extra concern. We'll get to talk about a few of those hubs during our trip into Africa. But like I mentioned, we are still considered a breeding facility. One of our main project areas is coming up on our passenger side. I haven't seen much activity just yet today, but it's important to mention the work we're doing here at the Nikita Rhino Rescue Center. This is where we're studying the reproductive systems of southern white rhinos in hopes to help out their cousins, the northern white rhino. And that's because there are only 2 northern white rhinos left on this planet, and they are both females. So our hope is that through our research, we can help bring these animals back from the brink of extinction. Out on our driver's side is the lagoon. This lagoon houses both Dalmatian pelicans and great white pelicans. They're going to use that island at the center for nesting grounds, and they also communally hunt together. The pelicans will go out and corral or circle up the fish that are down below. And the blackbirds in the water are the native cormorant birds. They're going to dive down into the lagoon, bring the fish up to the surface, and everyone's going to get a meal out of it. Most of the animals out here in our African loop, they are part of our Savannah Conservation Hub. And majority of the animals here at the safari park, they're part of an SSP, or a species survival plan. You can think of this as a dating site for these animals. Of course, we want to help them out and bring up their numbers, but it's important that we maintain genetic diversity. And that means we need to keep track of who the mothers and fathers of all the offspring are. The area coming up on your passenger side may provide very limited views of a few different animals. And I point this area out because this is typically where our bachelor herds are housed. The reason for that is they are part of a matriarchal society where a female is in charge. So once the males become of a certain age, they're going to be sent off to find mates and to take over new herds. So we want to mimic those natural behaviors here. On your passenger side, we are entering into the bird marsh. You're going to see quite a few yellow-billed storks. Near the water's edge are going to be the black and white birds called the sacred ibis. And then the bird with the yellow plumage of feathers on its head is a West African crown crane. Crown cranes will mate for life. And behind that collection of rocks in the center, you actually have a view of all three vulture species out here. They're kind of running towards the left. Right behind the rocks is the lappet-faced vulture, all brown with a bald head. You also have a mostly white vulture, which is the Cape vulture. And vultures play a very important role in their ecosystems because they help to prevent the spread of diseases. Most of the animals out here are going to have predators that lack color vision, meaning they see in grayscale or black and white. So many of the animals will try to camouflage and blend into their surroundings to hide out from those predators. The animals on our passenger side are really good at this. These are the Soemmerring's gazelle. They're going to have these light tan top coats to blend into their dry, arid environments, and bright white underbellies to act just like the flamingo's feathers, helping them to keep cool. When there is unusual weather here, which windy conditions is not typical for the safari park, the animals are going to change their behavior slightly to kind of adjust to it. So today I've noticed they've mostly been huddled up further down, kind of towards the end of the habitat. So we're going to continue in that direction in hopes to get some nice views. We do have a few species along the way. We're going to be pulling up to the smallest antelope out here on this portion of the tour. These are the Springbok. They are a tri-toned antelope who have these black racing stripes on either side of them for communication purposes. Because depending on how they're standing, they're telling herd mates if they're being dominant or submissive. They do this interesting behavior called pronking, where they spring up into the air to show off their fitness. That could be to attract a potential mate or to deter a potential predator. Next up are the large antelope out here. These tan antelope are the Patterson's eland. They are well adapted to move around into many different environments. So for example, they're going to have these long spiral horns on their heads, which they can use to pull down branches of trees if they need extra food options. And you'll notice the trees that the rest of the herd is laying under and across that roadway out on our driver's side. Do you notice that they're all at the same height? That is thanks to the giraffes out here. They come to manicure these trees at least once a day. It's usually more than that though, because it gives them an extra food option, and in turn, it creates nice little shade trees for everybody else to hang out under. It can get pretty hot here at the safari park, so these animals know to go seek those shady trees when it's just a little too warm. Up on the middle portion of the hillside, you have the Ellipsan waterbuck females. They're going to have these dark, shaggy brown coats, and their coats are actually specialized to help them flee into bodies of water. It kind of acts like a wetsuit for a surfer might. It's going to help to repel water back off themselves. We are going to pull up ahead here. We're going to have lovely views of quite a few different animals out on our driver's side. I just want to make sure we give the tram in front of us enough room. So we're going to slowly start heading in that direction. We have lots to see. We'll be able to fit. All right, awesome. We're going to pull up here so we can talk about the Masai Giraffe out here, as well as my personal favorite antelope. These gray antelope on our driver's side are the Gemsbok. I'm sure most people are excited about the giraffes, so we will start off with them. These are the Masai Giraffe. They are the tallest species, getting up to about 18 feet tall. They're going to have these very blotchy spot patterns to help them blend in. Their spots will mimic the shadows of leaves underneath the shade of a tree, because when you're 18 feet tall, it can be pretty difficult to blend in. You can pick out the male. He's usually easy to determine because he has the darkest spot coloration. He's been pretty interested in a few of the females recently, so we have been seeing some mating behaviors going on, which is really exciting. And then to those antelope, the Gemsbok. Those are going to be an antelope that live in areas where resources are very scarce. So they're going to have these really unique markings on their face called threat masks and these long slender horns on their heads. These two paired with one another are going to make them look intimidating because they don't want to be sharing their resources with others. So they're going to try to deter other herds from coming in and taking over what limited resources they do have. I'm going to scoot up just slightly so hopefully we can get a better view of the Sable Antelope who are at the base of the hill next to the roadway. They're kind of at a low point, so you'll see quite a few adults. The juveniles are slightly lighter than those adults, and then there's even some babies out there. We just had 5 baby Sable Antelope born here. Those are going to be the antelope at the base of the hill, kind of towards the back of the tram. They have chestnut colored coats, and there were 5 babies born in the last month and a half. So that's been really exciting. We'll pull up slightly here because we have some views on both sides of our tram. We're also on a mission. There was a dropped cell phone the last tour, so I think I might see it here, and I sure do. I'm going to pull up and stop to grab it so I don't run it over. It's kind of right in the middle of the pathway. 1 second, folks, and we'll get back to the tour.
Someone else dropped the phone, so she should have.
All right, folks, can you hear me back there?
Yes.
Yeah? No? Okay,
Yes.
thanks. Thanks for your patience. Didn't want to run that over. I will be pulling up slightly so we can have a better view here of the Cape buffalo, which are the large cattle-like species out on our driver's side here. Cape buffalo will defend against predators, and what they do is they'll circle up with one another. They're going to use those horns for protection, but if you look closely, you're going to notice that their horns curve inwards rather than straight up. That is so they are not poking one another in the meantime, because there's safety in numbers, so you want as many friends watching your back as possible. Out on this passenger side, underneath the grouping of kind of shaggy trees, that is a critically endangered species you're getting a view of. These are the Somali wild ass, and there's thought to be less than 300 of them left on the planet. So we are very lucky to have a herd of them here at the safari park. We are going to leave South Africa for a little bit and head into Central Africa. In Central Africa, we have the potential to see quite a few different antelope species, so I recommend keeping your eyes out that driver's side, and let's see who we can spot along the way. Looks like at the base of the hill, right up next to the shade structure, are the elusive greater kudu. Across the way, you also have the male herd of roan antelope. We may be able to see the female herd of roan antelope in just a bit. But check out how ideal Central Africa is to hide out a baby antelope. There are so many rock rings and crevices for these little ones. It's a behavior called tucking, or hiding their babies away, that these mother antelope are going to do to keep those little ones out of the view of predators and give them the best chance of survival. Out this driver's side, you are going to have a view of the 2 black rhinos out here. Check them out. A male and a female pair are out here in Central Africa. These 2 were introduced to each other not that long ago, and we've been seeing them take some nice, long romantic strolls with one another. We are all very hopeful that we'll have some success and maybe have a couple baby black rhinos running around in the future. We're going to be stopping on this bridge here because it provides one of the best views in the entire park. Because if you look out that driver's side, you're going to be able to see all the way down to the lagoon where we first started our tour. In this African loop, we could fit the entire San Diego Zoo. So there is a lot of room for these animals to roam and mingle with one another. On this driver's side next to the water's edge, these are the Ugandan cob females. Antelope with rusty coats will blend in nicely to green environments because predators can't make that color distinction. Over on your passenger side, we have the forest habitat, so lots of rusty coated antelope out here. Right up next to the water's edge, you have a red lechwe. Further back, you have 3 red-fronted gazelles. You'll see them flicking their tails back and forth. That is a behavior called flagging, and that is a way to tell a predator, actually, that they have been spotted. They're letting us know they see us back there. It's important to note that you may see an antelope kind of further back on that passenger side. One of them's kind of making its way through the trees. It has white vertical stripes, so if you can't see the antelope, that's okay. It's just important to know why it might have these white stripes. And stripes on an antelope is another form of camouflage. It's going to break up their outlines to predators in their forest habitats. You may notice a few other striped antelope, especially the ones right now on our driver's side as we cruise on in. We have a couple mixed species over here. They're in a low point, and I want to make sure we clear the gate here. So let me pull up just a little bit, and if you want to stand up and get a view, they're kind of far down the slope on your driver's side, but you have a male Sitatunga, and then you have 2 young Nyala antelope. Those are the antelope that live outside of Tram Station. You might see them. I can't see them from my point of view, but they're there. There's one little guy next to us. I can see him. But we're going to continue on here. Lots more to see coming up ahead. For all my plant lovers on board, I want to point out our passenger side, because this entire hillside is part of our Southwest Conservation Hub. I do need everyone to get seated for me, though. Safety is very important, folks. Thank you. As I was saying, that passenger side is part of our Southwest Conservation Hub, and that's going to include coastal sage scrub. Coastal sage scrub is an endangered habitat. There is thought to be less than 15% in the entire world. Animals like the burrowing owl, as well as the California mule deer, they're going to call coastal sage scrub home. Here at the safari park, we have over 1,800 acres, and about half of that is dedicated to the conservation of plants, because without plants, we don't have food and shelter for all these wonderful animals. You can help at home by planting native plants in your gardens, especially if you're a fan of monarch butterflies. You can plant milkweed, and you may just get some visitors on their long migrations. I think we might have a view, but just keep your eyes out this driver's side. If you follow the cement wall that's down below us, there are 3 Grevy zebra up against it. They were over here earlier, and I was able to see them a little better on the other side, so I'm going to head in that direction. But just in case they're not in that same spot, I want to point them out now. The Grevy zebra are a bachelor herd out here. The females are a much larger herd, and we have them kind of in the bachelor herd area, actually. They fit nicely over there. Check out your passenger side. There's quite a few of these trees with taco-shaped leaves. This plant is the Laurel Sumac, and it's native to California, and it uses those leaves to collect the morning dew that's naturally in the air. It trickles it down into its root system and is able to stay green all year long. Only thing I can see on those zebras are their ears. They're way over there against the rock wall. I don't know if you guys can see them. You're at a lower point than I am. But Grevy zebra are one of the most endangered large mammals, unfortunately. So we are working with efforts in Kenya to help bring the population size of this species back up. Really important. We are now back into South Africa, so we are going to see some familiar faces along our pathway here. Hopefully a couple new ones as well. And if not, we have the potential to see some more animals out in East Africa. I always like to encourage folks to come out and take the tram whenever you visit, because it's always going to be a different experience. You might have a different tour guide. The animals are constantly moving around and changing behaviors. And in the case for you folks, you may have gotten a glimpse of some of those baby antelope that were just born. Between us and the San Diego Zoo, we have about a baby of any given species born a day. But it's not every day that you get to see them out in their habitats with their mothers and mingling with all these other species. So it's really exciting when we have those new little additions. I think we were lucky enough to see most of the species out here. Looks like maybe one more to see. He's kind of in a low point here, so I will pull up in just a moment. But if you look out on your passenger side, there's this little shade structure. There's a big shaggy tree, and underneath it you have at least 2 Ankole cattle in your view. Ankole cattle have these large sets of horns. They were bred by the tribes in Africa for these horn sizes. And those horns can get up to about 6 feet wide, which is about the width of the seat you're sitting on. They're not as heavy as they look though. They do have a honeycomb structure on the inside, making them a little bit lighter. Looks like we are going to get ready to head into East Africa here. But before we get there, I want to point out that we are coming back around to that lagoon. It's important to note that we use reclaimed water to fill this lagoon, as well as for the irrigation of all the plants you see around us. We can all help to conserve water at home by turning off the faucet while we brush our teeth, or even trying to combine loads of laundry when possible. We all can play a small little role to help ensure that there's water on this planet for the future generations to come. Since we started up this hillside with some history on the park, there's a story I like to share about our passenger side. This hillside is called Amani Point, and it was Dr. Schroeder's favorite spot to bring people. He knew how important it would be for animals to have lots of room to roam. So he would bring people here to share that vision and show off the expansive landscape. Animals like the southern white rhino really benefit from this. They previously had a difficult time with reproduction while in zoo settings. Once we brought them here, gave them all this space, and allowed them to live in social groups, we found that they've been extremely successful ever since. We've had almost 100 southern white rhino babies born here. Unfortunately, many rhino species are still endangered, and that's due to poaching for their horns. There's a misconception that rhino horns can be used for medicinal properties or purposes, when in reality, their horns are made of the same proteins that make up our hair and our fingernails. It's called keratin. It's important we share that with others so we can keep these awesome animals around. When the safari park first opened in the 1970s, the population size of southern white rhinos was thought to be in the hundreds, whereas now it's upwards of about 22,000. So we know that those conservation efforts are paying off. It's just a constant issue we need to combat. Looks like as we enter into East Africa here, out on your passenger side, behind these shade huts, we should be having a view of some of the wildebeest up towards the top of the hill. They're going to be a silvery gray antelope. You probably recognize them from movies like The Lion King. They live in those large groups and do that massive migration across Africa. So they are an animal that will have those inward curving horns like king buffalo, because they don't want to be poking one another while they're doing that massive migration. We'll continue forward here so we can get a view of those East African giraffes. They're going to be at the base of the hill near the roadway that's leading up towards the top of the hill. Keep your eyes peeled for the little one. Her head's sticking out behind one of the adults. She's about half their height, I'd say. And this little one is about 5 months old. This is Nane, the baby giraffe, if you're getting a view of her. She's going to play a little bit peekaboo, I'm sure, behind them. But baby giraffes are born at about 6 feet tall. Because if your mom is 18 feet tall, it's Really important that you can reach up and nurse from mom, getting all those necessary nutrients. East Africa is one of my favorite spots out here because we have so many different species mingling with one another. I would say today would be an ideal day to head to the other vantage points we have here at the park. I can give you directions to those spots so you can kind of look out into this field and see if you get any other views of the other animals who live out here. But I want to thank you all so much for joining us today. By entering one of our 2 front doors here at the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance, you are an ally for wildlife. Every dollar you spend here today goes directly back in to caring for all these wonderful animals. Without your support, we would not be able to continue our conservation efforts around the world, so thank you. I hope you enjoyed your tour of Africa, that you were able to learn a little bit about the animals we saw. Maybe you got an idea of why they have certain coat colors or horns on their heads. If you should have any questions for me though, again, my name is Savannah. You can come and chat with me at the dock at Tram Station. Looks like we have this other tram still loading a few more friends, so we're going to hang tight off to the side here for just a moment. While we're waiting, has anyone been able to see the lions over at Lion Camp today?